Ladies and gentlemen, anger is a fire that burns inside us, often fueled by the words or actions of others. But what if I told you that this fire can be tamed? That no one can disturb your peace unless you allow it. Today, I want to share 5 habits that, when practiced, will make you calm, strong, and unshaken by anyone. Our mind is the place where every action begins. Every word we speak, every step we take, every emotion we feel is born in the mind first. Yet, most people let their thoughts run wild, like a horse without reins, and then they are surprised when anger, frustration, or regret appears in their lives. To control your reactions, you must first control your thoughts. The moment someone offends you, criticizes you, or challenges you, there is a split-second decision inside your mind. You can either let the insult become a fire that burns you from within, or you can choose to remain calm and composed. The choice is yours, and it is always yours. Nobody can make you angry without your permission. Anger is not something outside of you. It is a creation of your own mind, fueled by judgment, assumptions, and the habit of reacting before thinking. Most people react to the world as if it were attacking them. They hear harsh words, or see unfair actions, and their mind immediately interprets them as personal attacks. In that instant, reason is forgotten, and emotion takes control. The mind jumps to conclusions, imagining the worst, replaying old grievances, and forming narratives that may not even be true. By giving in to this instinct, people allow themselves to be controlled by forces outside of their power. Their peace depends on what others do, what others say, and what circumstances present. This is why so many walk through life frustrated and angry, burdened by thoughts they never took the time to examine. The first step to mastering yourself is recognizing this process. When a thought arises, especially one of anger, resentment, or irritation, pause. Observe it without immediately accepting it as truth. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me, or is it harming me? Is this perception accurate, or is it clouded by emotion? By creating this distance between stimulus and reaction, you regain control over your mind. You realize that thoughts are not commands, they are suggestions. You have the power to accept them, change them, or let them pass. This practice is not easy at first, because the mind is trained to react automatically, but with consistency, it becomes a habit, and the habit strengthens your ability to remain calm. Another way to control your thoughts is to examine the source of your judgments. Often, anger arises because we believe something is wrong or unfair, or because someone has disrespected us. But these labels are entirely mental constructions. The world does not conform to our desires, and people do not exist to meet our expectations. When you understand that, you realize that external events themselves are neutral, and it is your thoughts about them that produce emotion. If a person acts selfishly, it is not an insult to you unless you interpret it as one. If a situation is unfair, it is only frustrating if you insist it should be otherwise. By training your mind to notice this distinction, you weaken the automatic spark of anger. Mind control is not about suppression or pretending you feel nothing. It is about choosing how you respond. Thoughts will arise, emotions will arise, but you can decide whether they control you or whether you control them. When you respond with reason, rather than impulse, you act from clarity, not from chaos. You conserve energy, you preserve your peace, and you maintain strength of character. Each time you successfully observe your thought and choose your response, your mind becomes more disciplined, more resilient, and less vulnerable to disturbance. Through daily practice, this habit transforms how you live. You no longer give your power away to every insult, every criticism, or every inconvenience. You recognize that your mind is a sanctuary, and you guard it carefully. Even in situations designed to provoke you, you discover a space between stimulus and response, a space where freedom exists, where choice exists, where calm exists. You may still feel the initial flash of irritation, but you will learn that it is fleeting and optional. You will learn to step back from the immediate impulse, to breathe, to think, and to act in alignment with your principles rather than your passions. The true mastery of thought comes from consistent awareness, from questioning the judgments that arise, and from refusing to react automatically. Each moment of deliberate thought strengthens your mind's ability to remain unshaken, regardless of the chaos around you. In this way, You take control of the only thing that truly belongs to you, your mind. Life is full of events and circumstances beyond our control. People act according to their own desires. The world follows its own rules, and misfortune can strike without warning. Yet so often, we resist these realities. We spend our energy wishing things were different, complaining about what cannot be altered, and feeling frustrated that the world does not bend to our expectations. This resistance is the source of much suffering. Pain is not caused by the events themselves, but by our refusal to accept them as they are. The sooner we recognize this, the sooner we reclaim our peace. To accept what you cannot change is to recognize the limits of your power. You cannot control the weather, the mistakes of others, the past, or the unpredictability of life. When you attempt to fight these things, you fight an impossible battle, wasting energy on what will never yield to your will. Accepting reality does not mean approving of every event or resigning yourself to passivity. It means seeing clearly what is within your control and what is not, and directing your effort toward what can be influenced while leaving the rest alone. This understanding frees you from frustration because you no longer waste time and emotion on battles you cannot win. Resistance often comes from desire, the desire for things to be different than they are. We desire fairness, respect, success, and comfort, and when these desires are not met, our minds rebel. Anger, resentment, and disappointment arise because we insist that the world conform to our wishes. Yet the world operates independently of our demands. Events unfold according to cause and effect, and people act according to their own beliefs, fears, and ignorance. By accepting this, we release ourselves from the endless struggle to control the uncontrollable. We understand that it is neither personal nor deliberate when the world does not align with our hopes, and we stop taking external events as attacks on our peace. Acceptance also allows us to respond effectively. When we recognize that something cannot be changed, we can focus on what is within our power, our attitude, our choices, and our actions. A person may speak harshly, but you can choose your response. A failure may occur, but you can choose your next steps. Circumstances may be difficult, but you can choose patience, perseverance, and reason. By focusing on what can be influenced rather than what cannot, you act with clarity and purpose, rather than with blind frustration. This focus strengthens your mind and preserves your energy for constructive action. Acceptance is not passive weakness, it is active wisdom. It requires courage to face reality without denial and humility to admit that some things are beyond your control. It also requires discipline to prevent your mind from clinging to what cannot be changed. The process begins with observation, noticing your desires, your attachments, and the resistance that arises when reality does not meet them. It continues with reflection, understanding why this resistance causes suffering and how acceptance can release it. Finally, it requires practice each time a situation arises that cannot be changed. Consciously choosing to accept it rather than fight it, gradually transforming your mind into one of resilience and calm. The habit of acceptance shapes your life profoundly. You no longer waste energy on anger, regret, or anxiety about what is beyond you. You no longer suffer from the illusion that life should conform to your expectations. Instead, you meet each moment with clarity, seeing reality as it is, and responding with wisdom. Your mind becomes a place of calm strength, unshaken by the uncontrollable, because you have stopped treating the world as an enemy. You recognize that the events themselves are neutral. It is your judgment of them that creates turmoil. By letting go of resistance, you reclaim your freedom and preserve your inner peace, regardless of the chaos that may surround you. Through acceptance, your energy is directed toward meaningful action, toward what you can influence, toward living in alignment with your values. You remain unbothered by misfortune, criticism, or setbacks, because you have learned to distinguish between what belongs to you and what does not. You understand that true power lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling yourself, and that by accepting what cannot be changed, you live with strength, wisdom, and calm in every situation. Many people spend their lives trapped in a maze of past regrets and future worries. They replay mistakes over and over, wishing they had acted differently, or they worry about what might happen, imagining endless problems that have not yet arrived. In doing so, They lose touch with the present moment, the only time in which life truly exists. The past is gone, beyond your control, and the future is uncertain. Yet so much energy is spent on these two illusions. True strength and peace come from focusing on the present, for this is the only moment in which action, thought, and choice are possible. When you focus on the present moment, you train your mind to see reality clearly. The past may bring lessons, but it also brings attachment, regret, and blame. The future may offer possibilities, but it also brings fear, anxiety, and imagined disasters. Neither belongs to you fully. The present moment, however, is immediate, tangible, and available. By giving your attention to what is happening now, you engage with life as it is, rather than with the stories your mind creates about what has happened or what might happen. Distraction from the present arises because the mind is restless, constantly jumping from memory to worry, from desire to fear. People convince themselves that thinking about the past or planning excessively for the future is necessary. But this is often a form of avoidance. They fear discomfort in the now, so they retreat into thoughts that do not exist. The more the mind dwells in these shadows, the less energy is available for meaningful action. Anger, frustration, and impatience grow, because attention is given to imagined scenarios rather than the task at hand. Living in the present requires training and awareness. The first step is noticing when your mind has drifted, when you catch yourself dwelling on what cannot be changed or imagining what might happen. Pause. Bring your attention back to the current moment. Notice your surroundings, your body, your breathing, the immediate circumstances before you. Ask yourself, what is happening now? What can I do right now? What choice is available in this moment? By asking these questions, you anchor yourself in reality, where your power and freedom exist. Focusing on the present also allows you to respond to challenges with clarity. When anger arises because of a past event or anxiety about the future, the mind is clouded and reactive. But when attention is on the present, you see what is within your control and can act with reason. You are no longer driven by imagined slights or hypothetical disasters, but by facts and opportunities in the moment. Decisions become deliberate rather than impulsive, and your energy is conserved for action that matters rather than wasted on distraction. The habit of present awareness also strengthens patience and contentment. By living in the now, you become more mindful of small details, small joys, and small victories that are often overlooked when the mind is elsewhere. Simple tasks, conversations, or even challenges gain clarity and meaning because attention is given fully. Life becomes less a series of regrets or anxieties, and more a series of conscious actions. Each moment becomes an opportunity to practice calm, to exercise wisdom, and to act in alignment with your values. To focus on the present is to reclaim control over your mind. You begin to see the futility of worrying about things that may never happen, and the harm of clinging to what has already passed. You notice that anger, resentment, and frustration often arise from dwelling outside the present. By redirecting attention to what is immediate, you weaken these emotions and strengthen resilience. The mind becomes like a clear pond, undisturbed by ripples of past mistakes or waves of future fear. This practice is not about ignoring lessons from the past or avoiding planning for the future. It is about recognizing that the only time you can act is now. Reflection and preparation are tools, not prisons. True mastery comes from grounding thought and action in the present. Where your choices are real, your power exists, and your peace can be preserved. By focusing on the moment, you discover a freedom that no circumstance can take away, and you cultivate a calm strength that carries through every challenge, conversation, and decision. Anger and frustration often arise from how we perceive others. When someone acts harshly, selfishly, or unfairly, our immediate reaction is to judge, blame, or retaliate. We assume their actions are meant to harm us, or that they reflect their character as a whole. Yet the truth is far more complex. Every person acts from their own experiences, beliefs, fears, and struggles. By practicing empathy, we learn to understand these influences, and in doing so, we weaken the power of anger over our minds. Empathy begins with observation. Before reacting, pause to consider why someone is behaving the way they are. Perhaps their words are harsh because they are under stress, because they fear failure, or because they lack understanding. Perhaps their actions are selfish not from malice, but from insecurity or confusion. By looking beyond the surface, we see that most behavior is not a personal attack, but a reflection of the other person's state of mind. This perspective creates space for calmness and reason, allowing us to respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. Most people fail to empathize because they live as if the world revolves around them. They interpret everything through the lens of personal offense. If someone criticizes, it feels like an assault. If someone disregards them, it feels like rejection. Yet this self-centered lens distorts reality. The world does not act according to our expectations, and people are rarely motivated solely by us. By stepping outside of our immediate perspective, we see that each person is navigating their own challenges, and their behavior is often more about them than about us. This understanding diminishes the grip of anger and resentment. Empathy also requires imagination, the ability to put yourself in another's position without judgment. Consider their past experiences, their pressures, and their limitations. Perhaps the person speaking harshly has faced ridicule or loss, and their fear manifests as aggression. Perhaps the one acting selfishly has never learned to share or trust. Understanding their human weaknesses allows compassion to replace irritation. You recognize that mistakes, cruelty, or thoughtlessness are part of the human condition, not a deliberate effort to disturb your peace. Practicing empathy does not mean accepting injustice or allowing harm. Boundaries and action are still necessary when behavior is destructive. Empathy is about understanding motives, not excusing poor conduct. By understanding, we avoid taking offense unnecessarily and maintain clarity in our decisions. Instead of reacting with anger, we can choose a response that is rational and aligned with our values. This creates strength of character because our peace is not dictated by another person's actions. Empathy also transforms relationships. When we understand where others are coming from, communication becomes more effective, conflict diminishes, and cooperation increases. Anger often arises from misinterpretation and misunderstanding. By practicing empathy, these misinterpretations shrink. We respond with patience rather than irritation, with calm rather than agitation, and with reason rather than impulsive emotion. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to exercise the mind's strength and the heart's understanding. The habit of empathy strengthens over time. Each encounter with another person is a chance to observe, reflect, and choose understanding over anger. Slowly, the mind trains itself to resist automatic judgment and emotional reaction. Even when others act with hostility or ignorance, the empathetic mind remains grounded, observing causes rather than reacting to effects. This habit reduces stress, preserves energy, and fosters a steady inner calm, because the mind is no longer swept away by every insult or slight. Through empathy, we recognize a universal truth: people act as they must, given their knowledge, fears, and desires. When we respond to this truth, we find freedom from unnecessary anger. Our focus shifts from being offended to understanding, from being reactive to being thoughtful, and from being disturbed to remaining unshaken. By practicing empathy, we strengthen the mind, protect the heart, and walk through life with a calm that is not dependent on the behavior of others, because we understand the reasons behind their actions and refuse to surrender our peace to forces beyond our control. Your life is shaped not by what happens to you, but by how you choose to act in response. External events are unpredictable and often beyond your control, but the values you hold are within your power. They are the compass that guides your actions, the anchor that keeps your mind steady when storms arise, and the foundation of inner strength that no one can shake. When you strengthen and follow your core values, anger, frustration, and annoyance lose their power, because your sense of right and wrong, of purpose and direction, becomes the measure of your life, not the whims of others. Core values are not chosen lightly. They emerge from reflection on what matters most to you: honesty, patience, courage, integrity, kindness, or wisdom. When you clearly define these principles, you create a standard against which all your choices and reactions can be measured. In every situation, you can ask yourself, does this align with my values? Will this action reflect who I truly want to be? When values guide behavior, external circumstances cannot pull you into chaos, because your mind and heart are already anchored in what is meaningful. Strengthening values requires constant practice. It is not enough to know them in theory, they must be exercised in daily life. Each time you face a challenge, a provocation, or a difficult decision, you test your commitment to what you stand for. When someone insults you, your value of patience can guide your response, preventing anger from taking control. When you face unfair treatment, your commitment to integrity allows you to act calmly and justly, rather than reacting impulsively. Each act of alignment reinforces the value, making it a stronger part of your character. Values also provide clarity in the face of distraction. The world is full of noise, criticism, praise, temptation, and pressure from others. Without a clear internal compass, it is easy to drift, to be swayed by opinion, and to react to every slight or frustration. But when your values are firmly established, your mind has a benchmark. You can weigh every situation against your principles and decide how to act accordingly. This reduces unnecessary emotional turmoil, because your sense of purpose comes from within, not from the shifting tides of the external world. Following your values requires courage, especially when others challenge or mock them. It is tempting to abandon principles for comfort, approval, or avoidance of conflict. Yet true freedom comes from living consistently with what you believe is right, even when it is difficult. When your actions reflect your values rather than your impulses, you maintain control over your mind and your reactions. You are less likely to be angered by insults, annoyed by criticism, or disturbed by behavior that contradicts your expectations. Because your foundation is internal, not dependent on others, strengthened values also enhance your sense of responsibility. You recognize that while you cannot control others, you can always control yourself. Your choices reflect your character, and by adhering to your principles, you live with integrity. This mindset turns challenges into opportunities. A frustrating situation is not simply a provocation, but a chance to practice patience. An unfair comment is not a reason for resentment, but an opportunity to demonstrate calm and reason. Every interaction becomes a test of your values and a chance to reinforce them. Living according to core values transforms your inner world. Anger loses its grip, annoyance fades, and your mind becomes steady and clear. You no longer seek validation from others or measure your peace based on their behavior. Instead, you measure your life by how faithfully you uphold your principles, how consistently you act with reason and integrity, and how well you align your choices with the person you strive to be. By strengthening your values and following them in every moment, you cultivate a mind that is disciplined, resilient, and unshaken, capable of facing any challenge with calm strength. Many people live as though every insult, criticism, or challenge demands an immediate reaction. The mind jumps to anger, the tongue speaks before thought, and actions are driven by emotion rather than reason. Yet almost all suffering from conflict arises not from the event itself, but from our impulsive responses to it. The practice of pausing before responding is a powerful way to reclaim control over your mind, prevent unnecessary anger, and respond with clarity, wisdom, and strength. Pausing is not simply a delay, it is the creation of space between stimulus and reaction. When someone provokes you, your instinct may be to respond immediately, to defend yourself, or to retaliate. In that instant, the mind is clouded by emotion and judgment is compromised. By taking even a brief pause, you separate yourself from the initial surge of anger. You allow reason to enter the space where impulse once ruled. This pause transforms reaction into response, turning chaos into conscious action. The power of the pause lies in awareness. When provoked, notice the feelings rising within you. Name them anger, irritation, frustration. Recognize them as temporary and as separate from your true self. These emotions are natural, but they do not need to dictate your actions. Observing them creates distance, and distance allows choice. In this space, you can ask, what is the best way to respond? What aligns with my values? What preserves my peace and clarity? By doing so, you reclaim authority over your mind and refuse to surrender it to another person's behavior. Pausing also prevents escalation. Most conflicts grow because responses are immediate, reactive, and fueled by emotion. A sharp word provokes another, a defensive gesture invites attack, and irritation multiplies into argument. When you pause, you break this chain. You do not give your energy to feeding the conflict. Instead, you respond with calmness, reason, and control, often neutralizing what could have become a larger disturbance. This habit is not just about self-control, it is about practical effectiveness in dealing with others. The pause requires practice, because the mind is trained for immediate reaction. Each provocation is an opportunity to strengthen this habit. Begin with small irritations, a cutting remark, a minor inconvenience, or a subtle criticism. Notice the impulse to react, then consciously delay your response. Take a breath, consider the situation, and act with intention rather than reflex. Gradually, the pause becomes second nature, and even in more significant provocations, you retain control over your actions. Pausing is also an exercise in humility and perspective. It reminds you that you do not need to defend every slight or prove yourself in every situation. Often, people act out of their own weakness, frustration, or ignorance. By pausing, you give yourself the ability to respond without feeding their disorder or taking their behavior personally. You recognize that the disturbance is not in them alone, but in your reaction to them. And by choosing your response carefully, you reclaim your calm. The pause strengthens your inner freedom. Anger, frustration, and resentment have power only when you allow them to dominate your mind. By pausing, you choose reason over impulse, reflection over reflex, and peace over chaos. Each pause becomes a training of the mind, a reinforcement of discipline, and a step toward mastery over your emotions. Over time, this habit creates a mind that is steady, unshaken, and capable of handling provocation without disturbance. This practice transforms interactions with others. You become less reactive, less offended, and less entangled in the emotional currents of conflict. You notice provocations without immediately being pulled into them. You respond in a way that is measured, deliberate, and aligned with your values, rather than driven by instinct or fear. Each pause strengthens the ability to maintain composure, preserve clarity, and act with intentionality, and it gradually shapes a character that is calm, wise, and unbothered by the behavior of others. Emotions are powerful, and they often arise suddenly, demanding attention and action. Fear, anger, jealousy, or sadness can sweep through the mind, pushing people to act impulsively or speak harshly. Yet emotions themselves are not inherently harmful. It is how we respond to them that determines their effect. When reason guides emotion, the mind gains clarity and stability, and actions align with wisdom, rather than impulse. Without reason, emotions dominate, leading to regret, conflict, and a loss of inner peace. Reason begins with awareness. Before allowing an emotion to dictate your actions, observe it. Notice its presence, intensity, and origin. Ask yourself, what is causing this feeling? Is my reaction based on fact, or on assumption and judgment? Does responding immediately serve my purpose, or harm it? This self-examination creates a space between feeling and action, allowing thought to govern behavior. By acknowledging emotion without surrendering to it, the mind remains free and deliberate. Anger provides a clear example. When provoked, the first impulse is often to lash out, to defend, or to punish. Left unchecked, anger escalates, clouding judgment and multiplying suffering. But if reason is allowed to guide this emotion, you pause, evaluate the situation, and respond in a way that achieves what is truly necessary. Perhaps the anger indicates that a boundary has been crossed, but reason ensures that your response is measured, effective, and aligned with your values. In this way, emotion becomes a signal, not a dictator. Fear operates in a similar way. It arises to protect, warning of danger or harm, yet it can also paralyze the mind and distort reality. Reason examines fear, weighing its source against the facts of the situation. Is this fear rational, or is it exaggerated by imagination? Can the danger be mitigated, and what actions are truly within your control? By guiding fear with reason, you respond with courage rather than panic, prudence rather than avoidance, and focus on solutions rather than imagined disasters. Reason also shapes emotions toward constructive action. Emotions themselves are energy, a force that can drive movement and decision. When guided by reason, this energy is directed productively. Frustration becomes motivation to improve, disappointment becomes insight for growth, and sadness becomes reflection that strengthens resilience. Without reason, emotions scatter, consuming attention and effort while producing little benefit. With reason, they become allies, offering information and momentum that serve your purpose rather than undermine it. Training reason to guide emotion requires practice. It begins with small moments of awareness, noticing irritation in a minor inconvenience, frustration in a delay, or anxiety before a challenge. Observe the emotional response, consider the facts, and choose how to act intentionally rather than impulsively. Gradually, this discipline extends to larger situations, provocations from others, setbacks in life, and stressful circumstances. Over time, the mind learns to recognize patterns, anticipate triggers, and respond with measured thought instead of reflexive reaction. Guiding emotion with reason also strengthens relationships. Emotional outbursts often create conflict, misunderstandings, and resentment. When reason governs emotion, interactions are more thoughtful, communication is clearer, and responses are fair and deliberate. Others are less likely to provoke or escalate conflict because your calmness and clarity set the tone. In this way, the mastery of emotion through reason benefits both your inner life and your external relationships, creating harmony and stability. Ultimately, letting reason guide emotion is a practice of freedom. Emotions will arise, as they always will, but they no longer control your mind or actions. Instead, they provide information, insight, and energy that reason can channel constructively. The mind becomes steady, resilient, and capable of navigating challenges without disturbance, because decisions are based on truth, understanding, and values rather than fleeting passions. This habit gradually transforms character, creating a life in which emotion serves reason, rather than reason serving emotion, and where inner calm is preserved in every circumstance.